What is up, Bat Family? Welcome to the first Batman discussion series video of 2023. We've been doing this since before the first movie, and then during the movie, and now this is the post-movie discussion phase going into the Batman 2. If you're brand new here, what we do is kind of what I just said. We talk, theorize, speculate about what's already happened in the Batman, what could happen based off of what we know for a fact going into the sequel movie, but also we mix in some news, some actual facts that we know with our speculation for that of the Arkham series, the Penguin series coming our way. We're just big Batman fans here, and if that sounds like a little bit of you, then this is the place you want to be. And if I sound like crap, by the way, I'm sick right now, but that wasn't going to stop me from making one of these. It has been basically a month since my last one, so I'm very, very hyped to get into today's episode of the Batman discussion series. We're on like season 4, episode 17. I know I don't title them that way, but I've got folders, so this has been going for a minute. Can't wait to explore this journey with you. I mean, we're doing it right now, but as we get further and further into the Reeves Batverse. So hope you guys enjoy this video. Sit back, relax with whatever time you're watching this. Maybe you're watching it before bed, maybe you're listening to it in the car on the way to work, I don't know. But let's get into question number 1. By the way, hit the like button. I know people tell you to do this on other channels all the time, but it really helps boost these videos, and we'll get a good start to the discussion series in 2023. So Marcus Yee says a question in regards to Robin. Now, I'm tackling this again because a few of these screenshots, or most of them, are from the previous discussion series video. So that should encourage you guys to get involved in that comment section, because I like to, in between asking for a whole new set of questions on my community tab, which I will be doing very soon for the next video, sometimes I go back to the discussion that we were having in the previous episode and see what you guys had to say and then expand on it. So we were talking about Robin quite a bit, and Marcus G says, in regards to Robin, I think that's one of the many good things about the new DCU and having it be separate from Reeves' Batman universe. I know there were several people who disliked the idea of Robin being in the sequels or other connected projects, so maybe James Gunn can introduce the DCU Batman and Robin early on instead of waiting for several movies to establish Batman and then bring Robin on. It could be an interesting change of pace in a similar way to Tom Holland's Spider-Man being introduced into the MCU, and it can maybe mean we'll see this version of Robin grow into the role and eventually become Nightwing and leading the Titans earlier than expected. So this is like a teeny tiny bit outside the discussion series of the Reevesverse, but it's connected because we've been talking about Robin a little bit recently. Check out the previous episodes if you've missed it. But I wanted to talk about this because Marcus Yee mentions how the new DCU could have Robin in there. And I'm not discounting Robin being in the Reeves trilogy. However, with Matt Reeves meeting James Gunn this month, maybe that meeting's already happened. Maybe it's happening as I'm uploading this video. It was meant to be any day or week now. And they are basically comparing notes between Batman in each of their universes. As Matt Reeves put it himself, it's air traffic control, so they don't want to be like flying into each other with their Batman ideas. And I do agree that James Gunn probably wants to have his Batman, and I've been saying this in my DC Universe coverage, several years into his career already. Now, we know that the new Superman in this new DCU is going to be a younger years Superman. It's not an origin, so he's going to be a younger Superman, but I think Batman will be a younger Batman, but one who's already, I don't know, 7, 8 years into his career. So Batman, year 7 or year 8, which would mean that Dick Grayson, let's just say they're going that route, the accurate route, has been Robin for a hot minute now, and he could very well be going into Nightwing, and Bruce Wayne, let's just say, started at, I don't know, 29 years old. I mean, obviously you can start a little bit earlier than that. Sometimes Bruce starts around 26, but if the actor is younger than Ben Affleck and obviously younger than Keaton, let's just say Superman's younger, but the Batman of the new DC universe, which has got an 8 to 10 year plan, starts at like 36 or 37 years old. That would be perfect for this universe that's not going to do a whole origin with every single hero again. Maybe Superman's a bit younger, so he's not as down the line as other characters. But Batman, I think James Gunn's going to want to go the Bat family route with Robin, so he will be like 36, 37. Already had a Robin for a while. We've heard a little tease from James Gunn when a fan asked about Deathstroke, are you working on it? And I don't think he would have responded this if it meant nothing. Maybe I'm reading too into it, but he says, I could be. So thinking how Deathstroke is acutely, in the law-speaking sense, a Titans villain, I think that, yes, by the time we see the DCU and Batman and Bat-Family, possibly, Dick Grayson could be at the end of his Robin career, depending if we get Nightwing in Chapter 1 of this new DCU slate, or he could be going into Nightwing as Chapter 2 starts, and that could start the Titans phase in Chapter 2, like a few years after or a few years into the new DC universe. Now, let me say this. I don't think that people don't want a Robin in the Reeves trilogy. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Going off of the past couple of videos, people really want to see Robin. I've just always talked about if they do a Robin, I think they would introduce him, if at all, right at the end of the second movie. My example has always been a very rough one, just saying something as simple as Bruce and maybe other higher-ups attending the Flying Graysons, and the rope snaps and it just fades to black. Every single fan will know what that means for the third movie in a few years' time after that. But if we don't get Robin at all, and if Robin is in the main DCU under James Gunn's plans, I do think that means we wouldn't get a Robin in the Reeves trilogy. Maybe they would tease the fade to black kind of Flying Graysons thing at the end of the third movie, and let's just say we don't get a fourth movie and it is indeed a trilogy, then it's like, oh, we know in our heads that Robert Pattinson's Batman goes on to do that. But yeah, I don't see, and I think that's the whole point of this meeting with James Gunn and Matt Reeves, them doing the same things on the big screen. Obviously, you're gonna have Batman, two Batmen, right? You're gonna have two James Gordons, very, very likely. You're gonna have lots of Alfreds, etc., etc. But when you're focusing on other popular characters, I don't think they'll want to have, again, what Matt Reeves said, it's air traffic control. That is why he's meeting James Gunn. Before anyone jumps into the whole, oh, he's meeting James Gunn because they're gonna incorporate the Batman into the future DCU. No, I mean, going off of everything that's been said, that does seem to be shot down now. But yeah, I just thought I'd start off this video with that talk about Robin, because I do think that James Gunn will focus on his Batman already several years in. He's not a complete veteran, but he's been doing it for like 7 or 8 years. He's like 36, 37 years old. He's a bit older than Superman. He's had a Robin for a few years now, and with Chapter 1 starting off with Superman and going on for a few movies similar to that of an MCU slate, going into Phase 2 maybe, Dick Grayson could be going into Nightwing mode, could be going into the Titans, could get Deathstroke at some point in the, I don't know, year 4 to 7 plans of the new DCU, etc., etc. Whereas the Reeves trilogy, I don't know if we're going to touch on that. It would be pretty cool, but whether we get it or not in the Reeves trilogy, as I said, if we do, end of second movie, very end, but mainly in the third movie, we have to factor in if James Gunn's version's going to have it, then at least we'll have it in one way or another. In the DC cinematic universe that Peter Safran and James Gunn are carving out, or obviously there's the Reeves trilogy, but if you're going to bank on Robin happening at all on the cinematic level side of things, then I would bank, personally, for now at least, on James Gunn's take on his new DC Universe side of things, it going that direction, rather than Matt Reeves's. But let me know if you disagree, would love to hear your thoughts. Next up, we've got SAN commenting, and this is why we do these videos, so I just wanted to read it out. Man, I can't wait till we start getting behind the scenes stuff from Reeves or any plot details. The hype is going to be wild, and the build up to the first trailer and beyond is going to be so fun to talk about with this community. The anticipation is going to be overwhelming, lol. It's raining vengeance. So yeah, I agree, man. This is exactly why we do it. Obviously, we're doing it kind of monthly right now because, you know, there's still lots of fandom-y kind of stuff to talk about and ideas. We've got the Penguin series coming out, the Arkham series. Obviously, the speculation for the sequel movie. But when things start actually leaking out a little bit, we get some major trade reports of said actor is looking to be playing this villain in the Batman Chapter 2. Or even if you just want to look at the Penguin series with how the events of that, as we know for a fact now, are going to tie heavily into the sequel movie, man, this discussion series is going to get more exciting than ever. Up next is from Jackson. They're saying, on all the Two-Face talk, because we've been talking about Two-Face a little bit in recent videos, so going back to that and your comments here, do you think Harvey will be introduced as a stand-up lawyer with a positive reputation, or do you think if he's introduced, that he'll be introduced and played as an average Joe trying to do the right thing? I'm not sure which avenue would be more compelling. The thought of having him slowly make a complete turn from good to bad is interesting, but I also think having him be more natural and flawed from the start could also be a possibility. Would love to know your thoughts. Great video. So, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Like, if we see Harvey Dent done more or less identically to what we saw in The Dark Knight, because that's the last proper time we saw Harvey Dent in live action, it would feel samey. However, I do think it's important to not sacrifice what makes Harvey Dent such a tragic story, because he is a man who, especially in this new Gotham with a new mayor, like if you want to like, and this is the point of this series, look at it in a tunnel vision of Matt Reeves' Batverse, Gotham is starting to get a bit more hope now. Now, obviously, it's been flooded. We've had a whole bunch of corruption exposed with major pillars in the city, the mayor, the commissioner, the DA. It's insane, right? But we have a new mayor, Bella Real now. We've got a DA slot open. We've got a commissioner slot open, and I think we're going to talk about that at some point in this video. So I do still think that Reeves would want to portray this character as this bright spark, somebody who wants to make a change and sees this opportunity for change, just like Bella Real says, like a real change needs to happen. So sure, you could have him be a bit more natural and flawed, and I'd think possibly that could be shown comparing it to Gotham, believe it or not, and I've always kind of tended to do that in previous videos, whether it's showing some footage of a younger Harvey Dent, because he's often the youngest district attorney. So, you know, this guy has everything going for him. But what I liked about what Gotham did is that they showed little cracks to his anger, his impatience. You could argue references to his dissociative personality disorder. So I think Reeves won't want to sacrifice and, you know, just have him play like something completely different, or even maybe not something so completely different, as you said, maybe a bit more natural and flawed. I think it is important to maintain how he is a bright spark, as I said, but with what Fox's Gotham did, they showed little seeds to what would someday break into a full snap of Harvey Dent and Two-Face, right? We know that it will manifest with an actual mental somewhat breakdown and fully fledge his dissociative identity disorder to the surface, like the complete surface. And as Matt Reeves himself has said, an important thing for all of his characters, whether they start off good like Harvey does and go into Rogues Gallery mode, or even Selina, who's a bit more of an anti-hero, or even Batman, who is a hero but is fairly flawed, as we know, they're all born from a sort of trauma, and Harvey fits that to a T. To an absolute T. So going back to what I originally said, I don't think you should sacrifice what makes the audience kind of love Harvey, especially if it's written well and it's portrayed well through the actor, a guy who's actually doing good things. We've talked about many times before on this discussion series in how with the new Gotham, the new sequel, the new mayor, Bruce likely stepping out of his shell a little bit more. And then you have Harvey and these people kind of rooting for a better Gotham. And then we have Harvey's downfall into Two-Face. I do think there'll be differences as well to make it feel like not necessarily something we've seen before, because this is a Batman movie. We've seen Batman before, but Reeves still managed to reinvent, yet still maintain such accuracies with Batman with innovation. So I expect the same, just like what he did with the Riddler. I mean, look at Paul Dano's Riddler, very Riddler-y, but still a lot of innovation there. I do think he'll be introduced as a lawyer with a positive reputation, or if you want to put a spin on that, he'll be introduced maybe as the new DA, but he needs to really earn his place. So he might not already have this positive reputation. Maybe a part of his struggle is trying to really even get one in the first place. I'm not saying it's from like a selfish point of view. For him, it's going to be about doing the good work, but I don't know if it's going to be just like, oh, new DA, oh, everyone loves Harvey Dent, you know, straight up. So that could be a part of the character struggle. Again, that could also lead to the stress snaps that he has. He wouldn't have full-blown dissociative identity disorder right away necessarily, but you could see that coming out, and then eventually when the acid or whatever it is thrown in his face, perhaps during another Maroni trial, who knows? We'll be talking about Maroni a little bit later, and Maroni could be very relevant to this Harvey Dent, because we do know that Maroni is likely going to be involved in the Penguin series according to reports, so it could all be trickling together there. That would be like the catalyst, like the true catalyst, obviously, as we know, which kicks Harvey Dent into big bad Harv. I am really trying to lean into what you said here with regards to, I also think having him be more natural and flawed from the start could also be a possibility. The thing is, with Harvey being flawed, I just feel like that might go against what builds him up to be a great DA. and somebody who has a fall from grace, if you will. And that's why I think if I kind of want to like work in the middle here, the flawed aspect, if you will, could be what we see in Gotham. Him being a bit too quick to temper, his absolute thirst for justice sometimes, or, you know, if there's any injustice or if there's any difficulties that's thrown his way as DA, his temper might start to slip out. And this is way before he's even Two-Face. That's what I register and would adapt here from your suggestion of saying more flawed from the start could also be a possibility, rather than just a complete turn from good to bad. Maybe we see him slightly crack along the way. That way you see how Harvey overall is a good guy, but you're starting to get a bit concerned from what you're seeing in certain scenes. Maybe there's even other characters saying, there's a whole other side to you, Harv. Lines like that. Maybe a bit too on the nose, maybe a bit too cheesy with what I just suggested there, but stuff like that would be, I think, a way of bringing to fruition your suggestion there. And then eventually, obviously, when the incident happens, then he is full on Two-Face. Now up next is from Windex is Love saying, here's some of my ideas for the Penguin / Arkham show and Batman 2. So I'm just gonna give my thoughts on this based on kind of what we know and I guess what ideas I believe could actually work here. So Penguin show hints at multiple villains via news headlines, Mad Hatter and Victor Zsasz specifically. So as for the Penguin show hinting at multiple villains via news headlines, I think that's a possibility, but not necessarily multiple villains, but we have spoke about before how in the Penguin series, you know, considering we're getting several hours worth of content, 48 to like 56-minute episodes, who knows, right? We're going to get lengthy episodes for 8 episodes, and we know, like for a fact now, as reported and what we've gone over in recent news videos, that the Penguin series, or should I say the Batman Chapter 2, so the sequel, is set temporarily after the events of the Penguin series. So it is very close together, and what happens in that Penguin series, as Matt Reeves said recently, ties into the movie. So it is possible that there's going to be some Easter eggs. I wouldn't say straight up, you know, multiple villains, like, oh, there's a Mad Hatter, or like, I don't know, the news calling a certain villain a certain name. Maybe that's a bit too far, but like blatant Easter eggs, or there's some kind of hypnotic control or something like that. I wouldn't say specifically. It could be any villain. None of us know who Reeves could go for, which is why I always refrain when people ask me, who do I think will be the villain? It's so hard to know, and I don't think we'll know until there's any kinds of Easter eggs or hints kind of thing, and that opportunity could present itself in the Penguin series. So going on, Windex says the Arkham show introduces Dr. Crane and Dr. Hugo Strange. Those are two pairings that most people do like for the Arkham show. I do agree. I think Jonathan Crane would be absolutely perfect for this universe. It's just, I could spew about this for the rest of this episode. Jonathan Crane would be incredible. His fear toxin, how that could, you know, do a Darwin Cook Batman ego for Bruce Wayne, meeting the beast within, even though that was an inspiration for the first movie, being very psychological and whatnot. It could come back in with a literal more vivid hallucination. Plus, Crane is just an interesting villain to kind of prevent his anarchy in Gotham unfolding, and how Bruce would tackle that. Hugo Strange, again, perfect candidate for Arkham. We're getting an Arkham show, so who's better to show the horrific side of Arkham than one of the key workers or head of Arkham, Hugo, experimenting or causing some kind of misuse and abuse to the patients in that hospital or insane asylum. So I do love the ideas of these two characters, especially if they're introduced, as we know with Reeves' Batverse, everyone seems to be completely in their infancy, and it makes sense. Batman's in his infancy. He was 6 months into year 2, so 1 year, 6 months overall, and the other characters would reflect that. Like the Riddler, Joker was put away already, and that was during Batman year 1, so it makes you think Jonathan Crane could be working on something, but he's not fully fledged Scarecrow yet. Same with Hugo. Now, Harvey Dent is the now new DA of Gotham, being a charismatic and passionate 26-year-old, but in secret suffers from anger issues and dissociative identity disorder. Yeah, I mean, I'm just reading this now, basically everything I just said. I definitely agree with that. Leading up to the actual Two-Face event, the creation event of what scars him, I do expect some kind of anger issues, and that would be a cool way to show the cracking start to happen, especially maybe under the new stress of filling in that DA role at such a young age in what was such a corrupt city and is always going to be corrupt, but maybe not as corrupt as it was in the Batman 1 with every major pillar of Gotham corrupt, basically. So the pressure of that could get to Harvey as well, we can't forget. Penguin ends up being the new kingpin of Gotham, but gets into a full-blown gang war with Roman Sionis. As for that, I don't know. I mean, we are going to see other gangs, I guess, in the Penguin series, but I don't want to get carried away with seeing other really prolific characters, just because I don't want to set expectations for people to think that we're going to see Roman Sionis' Black Mask. I do half expect, or I just wouldn't be surprised if we get Easter eggs, or like there's the Sionis family, but to see like a fully fledged Black Mask take on the Penguin in this Penguin series, I have a bit of X to doubt for. Maybe by the end of the Penguin series, as Penguin has succeeded and come out on top, you could have the birth of Black Mask, like, you know, after his family once again didn't win, he's going to make sure they win in the future, and he's going to try and take it away from the Penguin after he came out on top at the end of this series. But we know the Penguin series is mainly focusing on the power vacuum that Falcone left behind, but Sophia and Alberto Falcone, the children of Falcone, trying to be like, hey, well, this is my seat. We already have a lot of people loyal to me, so we're going to take over. Alberto is reportedly more of like a playboy, party boy, not taking his role so seriously, basically incapable of it, and not having the smarts of it, not remotely ready as per Alberto Falcone. But Sophia is the one who will really be the brains of the operation. But supposedly Maroni could be involved as well, which could make sense, and we're going to get into that in a minute. So then to like tie in Black Mask as well, and if you did, with everything I just went over, I worry that if you did that and a full-blown Black Mask, you wouldn't be able to include him too much, and I'd be concerned that you would kind of not do the justice to the character that could be brought to fruition in the future if you just kind of crammed him in there. So with this one, full-blown gang war, basically, I expect stuff like that in the Penguin series, but I don't think the opposition will be acutely Roman Sionis. There's a lot of other drama, the children of Falcone, Maroni, and whatever the heck's gonna happen there. Don't forget, his throne was usurped by Falcone. Now he could be getting out of jail. So Maroni is going to be a huge threat potentially. And then just to think Roman Sionis as well. I don't know, given everything they've already got in the lineup, so to speak. Gordon continues to rise up the ranks of the GCPD, being just under Commissioner Loeb. Maybe having GCPD officers pick sides, Bullock and Montoya loyal to Gordon, others loyal to Loeb. That's a possibility. One thing that I think a lot of people assume, and I've even assumed at points, is that Gordon will be commissioner. There's new space, and it's the similar situation with the DA position. It will just be Harvey Dent. But what if that isn't the case right away? I think the new DA position should go to Harvey, but the commissioner position, Jim could rank up, like, for sure, but he might not be the new commissioner, even though I could be very well wrong with this speculation right now, and he could easily be the new commissioner in the Batman 2. Like, that would be really cool. But there is a possibility of more drama there. Jim has risen up, but maybe the second movie might serve more of like a springboard, if you will, in how Jim's got a lot more respect more now than ever. The Batman helped out massively in the first film, so maybe others don't frown as much on how Jim worked with Batman, brought him onto the crime scene like Martinez. You know, he was at first putting his hands on the Batman's armor, and then by the end of the movie, he was in the Riddler's apartment with Batman, uncovering the map of explosives around Gotham. So maybe there's going to be a bit more politics within the GCPD, and then Jim, by the halfway point or by the end of the movie, takes over Loeb. Let's just say Loeb holds the current commissioner position. He's not corrupt, but maybe just so much more incompetent than if Jim were the commissioner. Let's just say by the end of the movie, Jim takes that role, and deservedly so. But I could be wrong. I really could be wrong. It's just something to entertain. Joker begins his plot to escape Arkham with the Riddler, which he does at the end of the Batman 2, but betrays Riddler. I definitely think that, you know, story teaser there with Joker and Riddler saying Gotham loves a comeback story and all that could be definitely setting something up for the future. My suspicion has always been that could be reserved for the third movie. So yeah, as you said, by the end of the Batman 2. So that's been cooking away for all of the events of the Penguin series, maybe the Arkham series, or unless the Arkham series gets into it, and the events of the sequel, and everyone kind of forgets about it or is wondering, okay, but what happened to that? And then at the end, there's a report saying there's been an Arkham breakout, and then like this, let's just say the movie ends. We know where things could be going for movie 3, and I definitely could see that Joker utilizing the brains of Riddler to help his escape, but then completely stabs him in the back. I just hope that it wouldn't end with a murder of Riddler. I wouldn't want that. Much of Gotham is rebuilt thanks to Wayne Enterprises teaming up with the Elliott Foundation. Now, I do agree that this could definitely aid Bruce's philanthropic kind of endeavors. After the first movie, we could pick up in the Batman 2, or even in the Penguin series, as we're talking about headlines and we've spoken about before. We could get news reports of how the Wayne Enterprises has donated $2 billion to Gotham's plan for change and has helped small businesses recover, and the flooding has mostly been reduced by 80% now by the time the Penguin picks up, or like by episode 3 or something like that. I don't know, because apparently the Penguin picks up 1 week after, and I don't think everything would have been sorted by then, but that would be easy to put on a news report. But teaming up with the Elliott Foundation, the thing is about Thomas Elliott, he is born from wealth and privilege, usually, and in this iteration in Matt Reeves' universe, Edward Elliott, his father, was a journalist, and he didn't seem remotely wealthy or like in a place of privilege. He seemed to be like a, really from the ground up investigative reporter, and that's why he was doing that piece on the Waynes. That could have been a huge story, which is why Thomas Wayne tried to bury it, tried to pay him hush money, but that didn't work, so we went to Falcone. Obviously, really naively didn't think how far Falcone would go, and that ended up with killing Edward Elliott, so we would have something over Thomas Wayne. But going back to the meat of it, Edward Elliott, Thomas Elliott's father in this Matt Reeves Batverse, doesn't seem rich. So if he does do Hush, which could be a possibility, Hush is after all one of Reeves's favorite Batman villains, which he said in an interview one time, or his favorite, which is, something to consider, but that doesn't mean he will be the next villain, just entertaining it, that it would be a new take, maybe, just a new take. Maybe Hush, Thomas Elliott, doesn't need to be a rich man. Maybe the very seeds of the fact that Riddler broadcasted that expose on the Waynes across news and television news all around Gotham, that meant Thomas Elliott found out exactly who could have been involved in his father's death. Edward Elliott, the once reporter who was going to expose the Arkham's murder, which was Martha's parents, if you guys remember, and that's why she went to Arkham in and out, because she was so messed up from that, and Thomas was just trying to protect Martha, which is why he was trying to tell that reporter, please just don't do this. I know there's been a cover-up from the Arkham's murdering, but just don't do this. It does seem like a little bit of a leap after this for Thomas Elliott to be like, well, I'm gonna go after you, Bruce, now, and maybe try to look like you, even though you had nothing to do with this. It was your father, even though your father didn't go to Falcone and tell him to murder my dad. I'm still going to go after you. So I don't know what Matt Reeves would write in there for, Thomas Elliott to be truly in this new iteration. And that works, by the way, truly. He doesn't need to be rich. He could have found that out, and that could have been the seed for this iteration, right? This new innovation of Thomas Elliott in the Batverse. I don't know how they would write a good reason for why he would blame Bruce Wayne, or maybe he just wants in his mental delusions Bruce to feel like he's lost as much as what Thomas Elliott has, even though Bruce lost his parents anyway. So no matter what way I'm thinking about this, I can't think of a good way to write it that would make sense from what had already been set up in the first movie. But I'm going on a tangent now. I just wanted to point out that the Elliott Foundation, I don't know if it would exist to help clean up Gotham. I think Wayne Enterprises is completely capable of doing that themselves, unless Thomas Elliott, after his father's death, who was just a lowly reporter just trying to grind and make a big story but got murdered for it. Maybe Thomas Elliott made a big name of himself anyway in Gotham. And maybe the Elliott Foundation and wealth still exists because he's a self-made man. But anyway, continuing on, as well as Bruce making more public appearances, Bruce is still kind of an introvert who's mostly quiet in public. I agree. Again, the best we could hope for, in my opinion, is the Batman Telltale series of Bruce, which I think is more outspoken than even Robert Pattinson's Bruce could ever get to, but I think it would go down that line of things rather than Playboy, something like Christian Bale's Batman went on to do. Yet the slums of Gotham are still flooded, with it being a hub for human, weapon, and drug trafficking. The Batman 2 is set 2 years post-shows during Christmas time, establishing a decent villain count and character count. We could have small scenes in the intro of Batman taking down new rogues members and gangs with his monologue. The movie dives into the creation of Two-Face as well. So as for the Batman, is set 2 years post shows. I don't know about that. I could be wrong, but everything I'm examining, especially with what we've heard officially about the Penguin series, Apparently when that Penguin series ends, and I don't think that series, given just the premise of it, will be like a gang war for multiple years, or even multiple months. I think it will only last a short amount of time in that limited series of 8 episodes. It's not going to be like over a course of a couple of days. It could be a couple of months, but the thing we need to remember is if it ties heavily into the Batman 2, which doesn't negate a large time jump from happening, you could still have the events of the Penguin series do some major things, and even if it was set 2 years after that, it's still very pivotal to what happened in the Penguin series to the sequel. But given what I just said, I do think that the Penguin series will span over maybe a couple of months or so, give or take, and the Batman Chapter 2, the sequel to the Batman, will be set only maybe within a month to 2, give or take, after that, which would set it in wintertime still, which is pretty cool. I obviously don't know this for a fact, but I do think that the first 2 movies are going to be, in a time sense, fairly condensed to show this psychological growth between an early Batman. I think if there's going to be any opportunity for a larger time jump, I think that'll be reserved for the 3rd movie. Now, I'm not saying just like the 3rd Nolan movie where there's a massive time jump, but I do still think a time jump larger than the Batman Chapter 1 to Chapter 2 could happen for the 3rd movie. But 2 years, I think, even though I'll hold my hands up if I'm wrong about this, I do think it's going to be a much less amount of time. You're going to have the Penguin series in between, and then you're going to have the Batman Chapter 2. I still wouldn't be surprised if the Batman Chapter 2 in the monologue picks up saying something like 4 months after Penguin became the kingpin of Gotham, or something like that. I don't know. But I don't expect it to go like maximum beyond 12 months. Like that would be pretty surprising to me. Now, going along the line of the Penguin series theories, the Castleman says, I think it would be interesting if the Batman 2 focuses on a plot about several villains trying to fill the vacuum left by Falcone. The Penguin series could show Penguin's rise to power, but what if the sequel movie has other villains trying to compete against Cobblepot? It could be all-out war in Gotham between the villains. Now, that's something I haven't really considered. Most of us consider, and I do think this will happen, that Penguin will rise to power. He will somehow conquer the throne of the criminal underworld. I don't know what will happen with Maroni, but somehow Penguin will still rise out on top. But what I hadn't considered necessarily is that in the second movie, what if Penguin is the kingpin, but being a new kingpin means you still have a lot of problems. You now need to assert your control and dominance. Fair enough, you conquered all the problems and people trying to get onto the level you wanted to get onto, but now you're at that level. What about now asserting that power? You're still going to have people try and dethrone you. Now, what if the second movie, yes, we'll see Rogues Gallery members, or a member, mainly the main one being like Paul Dano's Riddler, as I've said in a few examples before. I expect in the second movie, you're still going to have multiple characters, but one main poised up Rogues Gallery villain, but that doesn't discount the positions that Falcone had, Penguin had, and other characters, right? So in the second movie, you could still have a large part of the plot. I'm not saying the whole movie is going to be about this, but what if Batman's so busy tackling the absolute drama of, yes, Penguin's in now kingpin position, but there's other massive problems with other massive characters, or a main character trying to also maintain control, that takes up a lot of his time. Now, I do feel like some people will view that as less interesting as having, like, let's just say, Jonathan Crane is releasing Scarecrow fear toxin all over the city and Batman has to try and stop it. I'm not saying there won't be the large main addition of the plot with a Rogues Gallery villain like that, but maybe a quarter of the plot somewhere along the way could be about, okay, Penguin is in that kingpin position and Batman's just like, this isn't stable, it's causing all of these problems around Gotham, people are dying, explosions are happening, there's a lot of collateral, and he needs to like try and stop that or maintain some kind of, I don't know, modicum of balance, even if he can't dethrone Penguin himself, because Batman is only one man after all. Maybe other big characters could be referenced among that quarter of the plot of the movie. For example, as we were talking about earlier, maybe Roman Sionis. That could happen in the second movie. Penguin is in his new position of power as Kingpin. Roman Sionis wasn't one of the big main players of the Penguin series, but he's one of the challengers to Penguin's new position of power in the city, and that's how you could maybe get little other hints or Easter eggs of world building and character introductions like that. But again, I would be kind of hard pressed to believe if a main movie's plot out of these 3 movies, which we still have to assume is 3 movies.
There's 3 Batman movies in your head.
Yes.
is all about that. I do think it will still be one big character poised up in the middle, but I wouldn't discount things like this at all, because there's still a lot of background stuff happening. Just like how in the first movie, Riddler was the main villain, but there was still a lot of background things happening. Falcone, major player. Penguin, the whole criminal underworld side of things. That wasn't, I mean, it was pertaining to the plot with corruption, because Falcone owned every major Gotham official, but there was still a lot of white noise of the criminal underworld there. So you can expect that white noise to still overlap into the sequel movie's setting, if you will. And just what could come out of that in very new, interesting ways with characters, Roman Sonis' Black Mask, or God knows what else. Maybe actual, as the Castle Man says here, actual other recognizable Rogues Gallery villains trying to compete for it as well. So Booksmart says, another awesome Batman discussion series episode. May it continue on in 2023 and beyond. Merry Christmas. Thank you. Question: what characters, both allies and rogues alike, from previous Batman series or franchises, do you want Matt Reeves' new spin on future Batman live-action films? I would love to see another take on Dr. Meridian Chase, Dr. Pamela Isley, aka Poison Ivy, and the Spellbinder character. So for me, Dr. Meridian Chase, I know what you mean. I think a lot of people want a love interest in some way, shape, or form for Bruce, maybe outside of Selina, or, you know, it might always be Selina on the bottom line, but maybe there could be someone else in there to shake it up a little bit, throw a spanner into the works, as they say. So I wouldn't rule that out. But a person that comes to mind for me that I would love to see, and it would give like another opportunity to show more scenes with Bruce Wayne, or even in the Batman armor, taking his cowl off and still wearing the suit underneath. That I love shots of that, like we saw in the Batcave, but we could have conversations with him like that with half the suit on, is Dr. Leslie Tompkins. I think that would be an incredible addition. I know mainly these scenes might be reserved for Alfred, especially after their relationship had been massively reconciled by the end of the first movie. So I think, again, a lot of the conversations and basically therapy that we might have in the future is naturally headed towards Alfred's direction with regards to conversations with Bruce. But after recently reading Batman Imposter and always loving the character of Leslie Tompkins anyway, I really liked the idea of imagining Bruce Wayne as that Batman in Batman Imposter in certain situations. And one of those situations was when, without giving away too many spoilers for that comic, written by Mattson Tomlin, by the way, the co-writer of the Batman Chapter 2, is that he had to meet Leslie Tompkins every day by dawn, otherwise she might hand him in to the police, because this was a take, or an iteration, if you will, a new iteration on where she discovers his identity, and Batman basically has to kind of prove to her that everything he's doing isn't out of absolute insanity and kind of justify it to him. So there was these meetings, and I'm not saying it has to go down that way at all, but some kind of someone else to talk to, or even patch him up, or if there's something else like that, because Dr. Leslie Tompkins feeling like she's failed him before, maybe because maybe she was there at the time of the Wayne's death, and then she finds out that Bruce Wayne, this many years later, is going out as a costumed vigilante. That could offer so many layers of sentimental story that I could easily imagine Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne interacting with that character. So I don't know if any of you guys feel the same way. Obviously, it'd be like a different iteration to Batman Imposter, but Leslie Tompkins is still, no matter what, at the core, fairly consistent as a character in whatever adaptation. And yeah, I think that would just be really, really cool to maybe bring someone else in on the fold. I'm not opposed to just keeping it to Bruce and Alfred at all. In fact, I am a huge advocate of more Andy Serkis Alfred scenes in the sequel. And again, that's why I still maintain that I think a lot of those Leslie Tompkins type conversations will happen with him. But maybe in the third movie, I don't know, you could introduce someone like Leslie Tompkins. That would be near the top of my list, I think, if there was an opportunity to bring in more characters who might be in on the fold of Bruce Wayne being the Batman. So up next from, I'm gonna put some dirt in your pizza. No, please don't do that. Don't ruin my pepperoni passions. I'm a pepperoni guy. By the way, hey Boba, my question is, how do you think they will announce the main villain for the Batman 2, and when will they do it? I'm thinking they might bring Retalada back to announce it like they did with the Joker scene, but I don't know. What are your thoughts? Love you, man. Stay safe. You too, dude. Thanks for watching. And that would be really cool. You know, I didn't consider that really, if they brought back the Retalada website to have fans uncover the main character for the Batman sequel. I've got a bit of an extra doubt for that, but that marketing for Retalada was very successful for the movie. It was actually very genius, and I think they're going to do something similar with that same marketing company for the Batman 2, but what we have to remember is Retalada was operated by the Riddler, so I don't know how that would factor in, even though it's not like truly canon to the film, for the Riddler to tease us with that. How would the Riddler know? So I do think it would be possibly a new thing. So ultimately, even though I think that's a really cool idea, I do think it will be just like what the first movie was. We got all these leaks that these villains could be in the first movie. Then you hear from major trades, or even maybe not major trades, that this actor is looking to play. For example, I remember reports of Jonah Hill was in talks to play either the Penguin or the Riddler. It seemed that he was auditioning, or like in talks, maybe not auditioning because it's Jonah Hill, for both characters. It could have been one or the other. That didn't end up happening, and it was Paul Dano. But from a pretty early on stage, when I say early on stage, still in like pre-production and everything, that's when everyone had like a really good idea that the Riddler name just kept popping up, and popping up. So when, as we will on this channel, cover the Batman Chapter 2 news, and towards after the summer to the fall of this year, September, November, when things I expect like this will start happening, that's when we'll be hearing one name over and over again, I think. And then it will only get more solid and more confirmed when you start to hear how Matt Reeves is looking at this actor. This actor has been tapped to play this character in the movie. Now, even though there won't be massive plot details by then to say, okay, like let's just say Hush or Mr. Freeze is the main villain, they could just be a secondary character. But that's when our speculation comes in, and until we get that outright confirmation, we'll be thinking, okay, well, this name has kept being leaked, kept popping up. Now we've heard from Deadline and the Hollywood Reporter that it's come down to a short list of 4 actors to play this Rogues Gallery character. By then, it kind of seems obvious, just like how we had it with Paul Dano's Riddler back then, that villain will be the main villain. Even though it might start to blur the line a little bit, let's just say there's a main Rogues Gallery character reported on for the second movie over and over again, maybe with actors mentioned as well. There could be another Rogues Gallery character mentioned with an actor's name, and then we'll start to think, okay, so which one could be it? Because it's a similar thing for John Turturro's Carmine Falcone. And not that maybe people thought that he would be the main villain, but what I'm trying to set the stage up for you is that we might hear multiple names, and some might be secondary characters, and one will be the main threat in the movie. And that's what makes all of this video making and conversation really fun. So that's how we'll probably hear about it. I to my knowledge, outside of like finally when we got the official report from the major trade saying Paul Dano is playing the villain of the Batman in the first movie, until we get that, that's basically how we hear about it. And you know, if you want to hear about it and kind of maybe be in the know along the way, if I do say so myself, this is the place to be for that. But again, I agree with you. If they did something like marketing-wise, that would be pretty awesome. But the thing about that is, even if they wanted to gear up marketing-wise for fans to try and crack who it could be, we would already know about it by then. Like, by the time they might want to officially announce it that way, unless they did it super early on, again, due to leaks and reports and all kinds of stuff, when things really start rolling by them, again, just like the first movie and YouTubers like me, we would have already been talking about who would be playing that villain, or at least the villain candidate, for quite some time, and then it would turn out to be true. Okay, so to end this video off with Nama Sims' comment, this was interesting to me because we've had reports of Maroni, as I've already mentioned, being in the Penguin series, and I was thinking, could it be like a Wilson Fisk thing on Netflix's Daredevil, with how Maroni's in jail, right, because of Falcone usurped his criminal underworld throne, and you know, there was biggest drug bust in Gotham history, and really Falcone ended up carrying on that drops organization with the mayor, district attorney, you name it, still involved in that and then reaping the benefits. And now hearing that Maroni could be coming back, especially in the time of the vacuum of power being left behind from Falcone, I was thinking, well, maybe he won't get out of jail, but he could operate from jail, hence the Wilson Fisk comparison, because, you know, that's I love that kind of plot with you can still be a crime lord in jail, but still have such strong connections that you're ruling the city. And maybe he could do that, especially now Falcone is gone. But maybe he can get out, and I didn't really understand that so much. So here we have Nama say, "Hi Boba, it was my first time on your video. Thank you so much." Well, here you are again, my friend. I've been watching you for years. Thank you. I also love these discussion videos. As a law student, I can explain the Maroni case like this. The operation against Maroni was staged for certain people to gain power. The drug business changed hands and Maroni walked out. Considering the corruption revealed in the movie, evidence presented to the court in the Maroni case came from the police officers and, more importantly, Mitchell. It was Attorney Coulson who pursued the case against him, and the mayor overseen them all. Now, even if the evidence presented in the case is very clear and certain, if you can prove the corruption of those who presented the evidence to the court, all evidence becomes invalid. In a simple example, and perhaps the most popularly, the O.J. Simpson case, there were even clear blood samples down to DNA, but when it was revealed that only one of the police officers on the scene had shown racism in the past, all the evidence from the police was considered invalid and not counted as evidence. Now, those who had entered the Maroni crime scene, who brought evidence to the court and who prosecuted him, all of them, their corruption was exposed. The whole process becomes unreliable. In these circumstances, frankly, even a newly graduated lawyer can get him out. I don't know how the writers or producers will take the story, but if it were real, Maroni wouldn't have been inside for even a month after the events. Thank you so much. Go on with this great work. Love your videos, man. And that is something I feel like I maybe should have thought about in how, in the Penguin series, if these reports of Maroni are true, the month after the events, as Nama just said, so the month after everything was revealed at the end of the Batman movie, Maroni could very well have gotten out, and that's why he could actually feature in the Penguin series, actually out and alive and walking around in Gotham City and rebuilding his connections and being like, hey, I was the former boss, Falcone took it from me, look at what happened, it's been 20 years, but I'm ready to retake my seat. And who knows, that's when maybe Penguin could buddy up to him, but really just stab him in the back. And it's kind of funny in that way, because Fox's Gotham did a similar thing with how Penguin knew Maroni, so maybe they could be playing it down that route a little bit. But yeah, if all of the stuff, I suppose, surrounded the corruption, I guess maybe all the evidence could get tossed out. And even though it's blatantly obvious that Maroni was running a drops operation, and it was the biggest drug bust in Gotham history, I suppose if you applied this kind of logic with everyone, I mean, it's true, the mayor, the commissioner, the DA, like everyone who was a part of that was corrupt. So I guess it could be all tossed out, and Maroni could be back out on the streets, and that could pertain indeed to the arc of the Penguin show, which makes things certainly interesting. Like, obviously I knew, especially if these reports are true, that Maroni could be factored in one way or another, in addition to Sophia and Alberto Falcone. Who knows, the arc could go along the route of Maroni might be a somewhat older man, just like Falcone. He's been in prison for 20 years now, so even if he gets out in the streets, and as per what is being pointed out here, and I've seen it in other comments saying due to the corruption or the evidence would be tossed out, him coming back into Gotham, you know, with a big swagger, so to speak, being like, yeah, I'm gonna get my seat of power back. Like, Falcone's dead now, I had it in the first place, I'm gonna get it back. He may be out the game a bit too much, so even though the first few episodes of the series could poise him up to be a serious threat, Penguin could still outsmart him. And of course, we all still expect Penguin to come out on top as Kingpin, so maybe one of the big dramatic moments could be, through Penguin's help, Maroni could be taking the seat, but just as that happens, Penguin betrays him, and Penguin becomes the big cheese of Gotham. But yeah, I just wanted to toss this in here because, you know, I'm not a lawyer. We have a lawyer student here, plus quite a few of you also saying similar things to what Nama Sems just said here. So yeah, if we do see Maroni in the Penguin series, as per some reports are saying, it looks like we could actually see him walking about and maybe actually trying to reclaim the throne with the Maroni family. And yeah, I do expect him to not last too long, though, even if that happens. And that's mainly because of Penguin being consistent in the game and Maroni being behind bars for 20 years. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed the first episode of the Batman discussion series in 2023. Many more to come, and as more time unfolds, there's going to be a lot more to discuss, and more relevant things than ever as we get closer to the shows, the production even of the Penguin. We're going to find out more about that, the Arkham series, and of course the sequel. So I can't wait to continue this journey with you. Thank you so much for the support. I love that we can do this every 3 weeks, every month, or whatever it is. I really enjoy talking about it, and I'm so happy that so many of you enjoy it just as much as I do. So if you like this video, leave a like. Of course, let me know your thoughts on everything we discussed today. Do keep an eye out for a community post soon to submit entirely brand new questions, and I'll be screenshotting your comments from that. And of course, make sure you get involved in the comment section down below, because I do take some screenshots from there as well. If you got this far in a video, you can leave a comment down below to prove that you got this far, to show that you're one of the real ones, with the hashtag for all your Pennyworth. It's a track from the Batman soundtrack. Of course, subscribe for more videos like this, news, reviews, and breakdowns. But until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow Bat family in the next video. Goodbye.